History of the Heartland had the great privilege to interview 101-year-old Irwin Soliday, a combat veteran of the New Guinea campaign during World War II. Here's a recap of some of his early experiences between the beginning of the war and his entry into combat. He was a volunteer who had enlisted in October 1941, just 6 weeks before Pearl Harbor. He was still in basic training at Camp Roberts in Northern California, and vividly remembers the minute he heard the news about Pearl Harbor. Most of the barracks was empty that Sunday morning. Some of his friends had gathered to play cards while he was reading in his bunk. Suddenly the news came over the radio about the attack, and his world was instantly changed. The Army was in something of a panic, and they gathered the recruits who'd barely learned to shoot and sent them out in small teams as coast watchers in trepidation of a Japanese invasion that very night. After a long sleepless night, Irwin was eventually then later assigned to the 43rd Division in Washington State, where Coast Watcher duty continued, this time overlooking the waters across from Vancouver, Canada. One night, the young soldiers were out on guard duty and heard the unmistakable chug-a-lug sound of a diesel-powered craft approaching through the fog. They unleashed fire with their machine gun and shot up their target. Unfortunately, nobody had told them about the commercial fishing vessels that were plying those waters, and they were lucky that no one was killed. This duty was soon curtailed. Finally, his orders came through, sending Irwin directly into the war. His 163rd Infantry Regiment traveled to San Francisco, where they boarded one of the most famous ships in the world, the cruise ship Queen Mary, now a troop transport. And then they were bound for Australia and the war in the Pacific. Listen to the rest of the interview for the rest of the story. And we just want to try to capture some of your history, which is very important.
Yeah. Wartime history.
Now, were you born in Chicago? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you joined the service?
Yes.
And were you drafted after the war started, or how did you get into the service?
No, I volunteered before the war started.
Oh, you volunteered before the war?
Yeah. Gotta think now. It was in December 7th when the war started, and I was in the Army about October the 16th, I think.
October 16th of 1941?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before the war started.
And so where did they send you for training then?
Camp Roberts, California.
Camp Roberts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
Oh, that was great. I liked it.
Yeah?
Yeah. But it was strictly a Army camp, regimentation, basic training, kind of instilling all the basics into you, and getting you used to the idea of being in the Army.
Sure.
But I was only in it October 16th to December 7th war was started, and then I really was in it.
Yeah. So you were still in basic training when the war started then.
Yeah.
How did you hear about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, I was in the barracks. It was on a Sunday morning, and I was there were some guys down at the end of the barracks. They were playing cards and shooting craps. There was a radio going, and I was in my bunk reading the funny papers. And it was on the radio that I heard the war started, and I don't know what time of morning that was. It had to be before noon hour, probably around 10:30, somewhere in through there. And as soon as that was announced, it was a Sunday morning. Most of the fellows were away from camp, all up and down a California coast. And I was still in camp, and when the war started, then the orders came out. All the guys that were in camp had to line up and receive orders to be on guard duty, and I ended up on the mountains. Let me get my directions right now. Just south of oh boy, the name escaped me. Hearst Castle.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
right.
just south of the Hearst Castle.
Okay.
And every fellow that was in camp was right away put in a force and given rifles and given the orders to go up in the mountains and just watch the west coast. Mm-hmm. And if there's any further activity, to start shooting.
Okay.
And so I spent my morning up there and my afternoon, and nothing happened. And let me think, was I up? I think I was up there most of the night, maybe all of it. I'm not sure. And then eventually Monday morning came, and all the fellows that were on leave came back to camp, and they were all assembled, and they were given specific orders of Coastal Guard duty.
I see. We're speaking with Irwin Soliday about his World War II experiences, and Irwin's been telling us about basic training, and so at some point you completed your basic training, and then you were assigned to a unit. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, then I was assigned to the 41st Division.
Okay.
In Fort Lewis, Washington.
Okay, in Fort Lewis.
Yeah. And so I went up there.
I went down to the
and
elevator to get
we went on
the station.
coastal defense duty along the
Elevator opened. One of the girls that walked out was one that
between the U.S. and Canada. But what was the big island in between?
Oh, Vancouver?
Yeah, Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver Island. Okay.
Yeah. And so then I was put on coastal defense duty, and we were assigned coastal spots, setting up machine guns, and
she connected with it.
I forgot what other stuff we were doing. And then the nighttime came, and nobody told anybody about the fishing boats.
Oh.
And the fishing boats were out at sea, and they'd come in the dark.
Yeah.
And some of the GIs were pretty trigger happy, and they had machine guns, and they started shooting at them. And some of them got shot up pretty bad. And then the orders came down to hold your fire, and we've got commercial fishing going on.
Right.
And you see, I think I was on that a couple of weeks, and then we regrouped, and got to think a minute. I don't know if I went back to Camp Roberts. No, I went up to Fort Lewis. And then I was assigned to the 163rd Infantry.
Okay. Yeah.
And we continued coastal defense for a while until I was.
Rating and Billy Crystal is a star.
Got to think where they go from there.
When did you get word that you were going to ship out to the Pacific?
From there.
Okay.
And I was in Fort Lewis then, and the company had regrouped and everything, and finally got orders to go out to the Pacific, and went down to San Francisco to catch a ship. And the one I happened to get on was an English ship.
Oh, really?
And it was the Queen Mary.
Oh, my goodness, Queen Mary.
Yeah, and all English sailors on it.
Yeah.
And I sailed from there across to Sydney, Australia.
Oh, I see. So you went from San Francisco to Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that the whole
The whole division?
division, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It might have been less a couple of artillery units, but basically all of it.
I see.
And we went across to Pacific, and actually we were bound for Philippines. And on the way over in the middle of the Pacific, just off Australia, I think came can't think of the first ship that attacked the Japanese up in almost to Japan. But we were on our way up there, and then the war got really intense, and from there they changed it and they shipped me off to Australia, the whole division, and we camped in South Australia for about 4 months, and then we were sent up to tropic Australia, and then I was up there about another 4 to 6 months, I'm not certain. And from there we were assigned to New Guinea, where we entered combat.
So the campaign in New Guinea was raging.
Oh yeah, that's going pretty hot. And they only had one division up there, and it was the 32nd Division, and they had been in Australia close to where we were, but for some reason they got the call to go first. They had not trained as long as we had, and we were also in Australia just south of them a little bit, but they got the call to go first. And then the story up there is that it was very rough, and they got the heck kicked out of them. And then the 41st was sent up, and I entered combat on January 2nd.
Yeah,
1943, I think.
You got the 163rd got to New Guinea right after Christmas. Is that right? According to my notes, research I did, right after Christmas.
Because it was January. Yeah, it was January something. It'd be right after Christmas. Yeah.
And so you went pretty much right into combat then.
You bet your life I did. I remember we got up to New Guinea. We had one night in camp by the main city in New Guinea on the south side.
Port Moresby?
Yes.
Yeah. My uncle was there, by the way.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was in a port battalion, so he didn't see combat. He had easy duty.
Yeah, and so we only had about 2 days there, and then we were shipped across the mountains into New Guinea.
Now, you went by truck, or how did you get up there?
Airplane.
Oh, by airplane.
Yeah, it was a beat-up old Australian bomber.
Okay.
And no doors, no windows. Had a pilot and a co-pilot, and it had one sergeant gunner, and we had one Bren gun on each side, and we were told that if we saw anything, to grab a machine gun and start firing. Well, hell, we'd never seen a gun like that.
Yeah.
And So we went over the mountain. We didn't see any other enemy planes or anything, and I landed on the north side of New Guinea. And as soon as I landed, we got out and walked about a mile, and then we found where the Yanks were, and we pulled off and went into the jungle. And mind you now, I was in Port Moresby, got on the plane, got over on the other side and landed, walked about a mile or so, went into the jungle, met other units that I was supposed to be with, and the first thing I got was assigned to the furthest outpost they had.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was my first night. And then I had to take with me, I took a case of 36 grenades. And I got out there and relieved one man. The other fellow was so tired, he just kept sleeping. And I was awake all night, and I heard everything. And
well, that was your first night in the jungle then?
yeah, right into it. And then I kept throwing grenades all night long. By morning, all of my 36 grenades were gone.
Wow.
So, but I could hear the Japs crawling around in between us, and some of them were shooting at us, and some of the Yanks were shooting at them. And I didn't shoot at night because I know that the flame would designate where I was shooting from.
Sure, yeah.
And so I just kept my rifle down and didn't shoot, and stayed in my foxhole all night, and all I did was throw out the grenades. And by morning my grenades were all gone, and then I don't remember if I was relieved from that and back get some rest, which I think I did. And then from there on, it was constant combat in the front lines.
So how did that start? Were you ordered to move forward to the jungle, or what happened?
Was it what?
Did you have to move forward to the jungle then, or?
We were in the jungle.
Yeah.
We were in the jungle, and we were in the front lines, and the Japs were just, they weren't very far away from us. They were just right across from us. And we could hear them talking and everything.
Yeah.
And once in a while you'd catch an image of one of them walking back and forth. But you were pretty close to them.
Yeah.
And so I was on the front line quite a while the first night, and then I was relieved and pulled back so I could get some sleep. And the second night, and from there on, I was in the jungle all the time. So right from there on, I was frontline troop and in combat.
So how did it start? And as far as from your perspective as one soldier on the front line, were the Yanks moving forward and attacking the Japanese positions, or how did it go?
No, it was pretty much stalemated.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much movement of one of the Yanks invading the Japs, or the Japs invaded the Yanks. Pretty well stalemated.
Okay.
And it's just shooting back and forth, and
So
all I remember was raining like hell all the time, and we were in foxholes and full of water.
Yeah.
And miserable.
Yeah. Very wet conditions.
Oh boy, up to here.
So you were stuck in that stalemate position for what, a period of weeks then?
For a couple of weeks, yeah.
Yeah. So then what happened? Did the Japanese start to withdraw, or what happened that the situation changed?
Well, there was a pretty good intensified shooting period from us toward the Japs.
Yeah.
And we were whittling them down, and
12 hours.
then eventually, I guess we had different patrols going out and locating exactly where they were, and then we'd send detachments out to attack them, and that kept up for about a month.
Okay.
And so I'd be on the line for a day or two, and then I'd be pulled off the line to get some rest in that, and back on the line again, and I just kept up a while. And then we had some scouting in between, where I'd be off on with a couple other fellas trying to find out exactly where they were.
Now, how did that go when you were wandering out into the jungle and trying to find some signs of the Japanese?
It
or-
was scary as all hell.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, trying to find them. And we'd locate them once in a while and shoot them for a while, then pull back. And they do the same thing.
Okay.
And then after a few weeks, it became a kind of a stalemate. We knew exactly where the Japs were, and we had a kind of a stalemate. But then we had to patrol the lines to make sure that they didn't change. And as we did that, we'd extend them a little bit toward the left,
Okay.
which would be west, I think.
Yeah.
And then we had some pretty darn good scuffle with them,
Yeah.
skirmishes with them. A lot of Japs got killed, a lot of Yanks got killed. And it was just front line to front line. Wasn't much gap between us or anything. It was pretty tight, pretty rough.
Was it mainly rifle fighting, shooting?
Yes, yeah. Mostly rifle firing. Some they had some Jap machine guns, but we had machine guns, but we couldn't really employ them much because we were patrolling the same area we were shooting in.
Yeah.
And we couldn't take the machine guns too often.
Okay.
And
So eventually, what happened? Did the Japanese just kind of their resistance wore down, and you got enough of them that?
As we extended our lines westward, we run across the Jap hospital. And I remember when we first located the Jap hospital, even those that were wounded were in bunks. Now, when I say bunks, these were made up of jungle limbs and everything, and they're laying above the ground,
Right.
but on tree limbs and that.
So did they have a roof over them or
No.
No. Okay.
And but they'd have their rifles with them.
Yeah.
And I remember one patrol I was in, we were going through there, and they were all in their bunks, and it was a Jap hospital, and these fellows were evidently injured or something, but every one of them was shooting at us.
Yeah.
And so we just shot the hell out of the Jap hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
And killed them all.
Yeah.
And most of what I was in was front line like that, where there wasn't much forward advance. It was mostly to our left, westward.
So you were kind of enveloping getting around them. Yeah.
And but always it was jungle.
Yeah.
And it was rain. Oh my God! You dig a foxhole, and nighttime in the rain, you'd be in the water this deep.
Wow.
And colder than heck at night. Jungle's a funny place. Hotter than hell at daytime, colder than hell at night. And we'd climb into the foxholes of water to keep warm.
Wow.
And strange place.
So you're slogging through this jungle. It's constant rain, and looking for the Japanese
Oh, God,
and
a lot of rain.
getting around them. And
Yeah.
How did it finally get resolved? Did you finally get out of the jungle?
Well, we pushed them back somehow.
Yeah.
And with patrols, constant patrols and everything, putting pressure on them, and little by little, they began to dissipate. Because a lot of them were getting killed, and a lot of them were moving east.
Yeah.
And but we always knew where they were, and we were following them and keeping up combat all the time.
When did you finally get out of the jungle?
Well, I got out about 4 months afterwards, and the battle's still going on. Our troops are still advancing northeast, and I got every jungle disease you could think about, and finally I had so much of it I had to be sent back to a hospital, and it was still in New Guinea, and I had some of these jungle disease hit me pretty bad, and they sent me back to Australia.
Okay.
I was in hospital back there a while.
Did they send you by ship then?
No, by airplane.
By airplane. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were evacuated essentially from all these jungle diseases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I had lots of them, and I had an awful lot of disease that I carried with me. But I never went back into combat again. I kept going back further and further to hospitals and that.
Yeah.
But I had everything you could think of.
So you had a long recovery then.
A long time.
Okay. All right. Well, Irwin, thank you so much for sharing with us. We'll come back at some point and follow up with your stories, because we'd like to hear.
Okay.
What happened after that? What happened after you were evacuated? After your combat experiences in New Guinea?
Okay.
And we really appreciate our time with you tonight. So I'm Brett Robertson. I'm signing off for now for Help for Heroes.
Okay,
and thank you very
fine.
much, Irwin.
Thank you.